And get started here. For those of you who are still eating, feel free to eat. And great lunch today. Let's give Cha 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 a hand for the lunch today. By the way, incredible lunch. My name is Walter Marchbanks. I'm the Customer Programs and Services Manager with the Port of Portland. I use he, him pronouns, and welcome to everyone in the room. You're coming live on YouTube. We're streaming this on YouTube and also in front of roughly 60 folks here in our Port headquarters building on this hybrid event. This event is really a great opportunity to recognize and celebrate some of our great customer service success stories that we've received over the last 3 months. Once a quarter, employees from across all 8 industries that we have at the airport are recognized during these events. And here, this is our opportunity to really publicly honor and recognize those individuals. So for those of you who haven't been to this event before, here's what you can expect. First, we're going to start things off with a great presentation by Tobi Rates, Executive Director with the Autism Society of Oregon. I'll also be sharing some tools and resources available to travelers and employees to help make the travel experience better for all airport users. And following our presentations, and obviously most importantly, we'll be hosting the awards part of today's presentation. So we're all here to show love for our customer service superstars that we have in the room. So please, round of applause after we recognize the folks. And also, if those are joining us remotely on YouTube, feel free to share the video with your loved ones, smash that like button, comment. And for those of you in the room, again, let's give them a nice warm round of applause after we recognize those folks. So without any further ado, it's my honor to bring up Tobi Rates. Tobi Rates has been the Executive Director of the Autism Society of Oregon since October of 2011. She previously practiced law in Washington, D.C. metro area and in Boulder, Colorado. She and her husband are parents of 2 young adults, both of whom are autistic. One of her sons recently passed away due to complications from epilepsy. Tobi has been involved with the autism community since moving to Oregon in 2008, helping people navigate the educational, medical, governmental, community support systems in Oregon is a primary goal. And just a personal story, I've known Tobi for 6 or 7 years. She's been an amazing friend, an amazing business partner, an amazing colleague. So please, Tobi Rates.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Walt, for that introduction. Of course, I'm going to bring the microphone down just a tad because Walt's a lot taller than I am. And I want to thank Walt and everyone at the port. You all have been wonderful partners. Walt has really been a driving force in things like setting up a sensory room to make it easier for people with autism and with other disabilities to access the airport, plus doing the Sky's the Limit events. And Walt is just an unending source of energy and enthusiasm, and we appreciate it. So I will get started now. I am here to talk about autism spectrum disorder and the Autism Society of Oregon. Going to keep it short, 10 to 15 minutes, so obviously this isn't going to be a deep dive into autism, but we'll do our best to at least give you sort of an overview. And one quick thing about language, my pronouns are she, her, and hers. In the disability community, you may have a lot of preferences usually given to what's called person-first language. So person with autism, for example. Autism is different in a lot of ways, and this is one way in which it's different. Everyone has their own opinions, but in general, the majority opinion of autistic people seem to prefer identity first language. So autistic person rather than person with autism. And if you're used to person first language, that may sound a little grating, but I just like to give a note and say I prefer to use identity first language when I'm giving a presentation, because that seems to be the general preference. But when I'm talking with individuals, I find out what their preference is. So just to make that note. Okay, so what is autism? And like I said, this is going to be a quick overview. And as I note on the slide, which by the way, the slides are available to anybody who would like them, we have 4 short videos on our website. They're 5 minutes or less each that go into more detail about this. But to give an overview for today, basically autistic people experience the world differently due to differences in brain development. And these differences affect a number of areas. One of the main ones is communication, and that's both verbal and nonverbal communication. So some autistic people are nonverbal or non-speaking, as my younger son was, but they still communicate with whether it's sign language, pictures, what I call significant looks. My son would, look at candy, look back at me, look back at the candy. He made his point now. But the majority, probably 60 to 70% of autistic people do communicate verbally. It is oftentimes not the preferred means of communication, and when stressed, it can be one of the first skills to go. So someone who was verbal now all of a sudden isn't, and it's because they're overwhelmed. But regardless of whether they're speaking or not, nonverbal communication is a huge area of difficulty for a lot of autistic people. That they're not picking up the social cues, the body language, the tone of voice, those sorts of things, which can be something over 80% of communication when you're in a conversation. So that's a lot of communication that's being missed. And that also leads to differences in social interaction, the next one on the list. Some autistic people, because they are not picking up those social cues, have a very difficult time with social interactions and have had difficult social interactions and sometimes shy away from them. It's not everyone. Some autistic people are very, very social, including one of my nephews. Another hallmark of autism are intense interests. We joke that the interests are an inch wide and a mile deep. And particularly with my older son, his interests have varied all over the place, and I've learned an enormous amount from him, including the whole process for mummifying an Egyptian pharaoh. But that's also a really good way in to find out what their intense interests are, because they're more than happy to share those and are usually being told not to. So another hallmark of autism are what are repetitive behaviors, or what are called stims, or self-stimulating behaviors. And those are some of the very sort of stereotypical autistic things of flapping or rocking, or it can be a verbal stim, saying the same thing over and over. Those are generally ways of handling their environment, of overcoming anxiety, and different ways of helping them cope. So what we generally say is, unless the stim is harmful to themselves or others, let them have that stim. Because, and speaking as a parent, if you try and extinguish that stim, you're really not going to like the behavior that replaces it. This is helping that person, even if it's annoying. And then finally, sensory issues. Every autistic person has a sensory processing disorder. It's part of the diagnosis. But it doesn't go the other way. People can have sensory processing disorders and not be autistic. But these can be some of the most difficult things for an autistic person to deal with, because they can either be oversensitive or undersensitive in all of their senses. So things like lights, noise, being around people, temperature of food, outdoor temperature, pain, all of those things can either be overreactive to, and it's overwhelming to them, or they can be underreactive, and they're what we call a sensory seeker. So like my younger son was a sensory seeker, nothing bugged that kid. He would have been happy in a mosh pit. He was great. My older son, who is verbal, he has a lot of sensory issues. He has never had hot food. He waits for his food to cool down. Even as a baby, he didn't want his baby food heated up. And he gets overwhelmed with lights and noise. And kind of the classic example is the flickering of a light from a fluorescent bulb. Most people can tune that out. For some autistic people, it's overwhelming. And if you're in a classroom and you've got a flickering light bulb that's overwhelming your senses, you're not learning anything in that classroom. So those are some of the hallmarks of autism. But the main thing I always want people to get from the entire presentation is what's in red. every autistic person is different. How they react to the situation, how they're feeling that day is going to change how they interact. So you really have to know the autistic person or ask, whether it's them or a supporter who's with them. Some basic facts about autism. 1 in 36 children is diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder by age 8. That is from the newest CDC study that just came out. It's about 2.8% of all children. So as we say, if you don't know an autistic person yet, you will. And the incidence rate has gone up enormously over the years. I think when my kids were first diagnosed about 15 years ago, it was maybe 1 in 200. So, and every 2 years, the new CDC study comes out, and it's always going up. Autism is a lifelong developmental disability. It is not something you grow out of. It is not something that you cure or that we're looking to fix or to cure. As an organization, we're here to help autistic people and their loved ones to live their lives fully. There is a genetic link. Autism can run in families. It doesn't have to. It does in mine. I have, like I said, my 2 children and 3 nephews are all autistic. Most commonly diagnosed in males, or people who are designated male at birth. That doesn't mean that females aren't autistic. It simply means that it's oftentimes harder to spot, or doctors overlook it and think it's something else. And anecdotally, it does seem to be evening out a little bit more. Autism frequently occurs with other diagnoses, and some of the common ones are things like ADD or ADHD, anxiety, depression, Down syndrome, epilepsy, which my son had, sleep disorder, gastrointestinal disorders, even Down syndrome. So very rarely does an autistic person only present with autism. And some of those things, including for folks who are traveling, anxiety can be extremely debilitating in context with autism too. And then a couple of depressing statistics that 50% of autistic people do not graduate with a regular high school diploma, which was true in my family. 1 child did and 1 child didn't. And then some 70% of autistic adults are unemployed or underemployed. And I'll just remind you that intellectual disability is not part of an autism diagnosis. Some autistic people do also have an intellectual disability, but not all by any means. So that underemployment statistic is something that we're trying hard to change. The main takeaway from this presentation, I just want to say again, is that every autistic person is a unique individual. Everyone has different needs, wants, abilities, strengths, lifestyles, and goals. So really the important takeaway is you've got to treat, when you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. And that's a truism. That's actually true. Some ideas for supporting autistic people. The green is what to do, the red is what not to do. So under the green, be calm and patient. I have found that, I know in my own experience with my sons and with other people I know, they kind of mirror my affect. So if I'm calm and patient, it helps them remain calm. Give them space, even if they're crowding you. You don't know the sensory sensibilities of this person if they need to have space. As I said, some autistic people are nonverbal or non-speaking. Others are speaking, but they can tend to lose that when agitated. So the best way to understand what's going on with that person is to recognize that behavior is communication. And the way you listen to them is by observing carefully. If someone is stimming and they're flapping, and that flapping all of a sudden gets a lot more animated, that can mean they're under stress. And maybe it's time to find them a quieter place or something that'll take them away from whatever is stressing them out. The same thing with the idea of allowing extra time for a response. It can take extra time to process language for an autistic person. It has nothing to do with intellectual ability. It's just processing speed. So for some people, it's as if English, although it's their native language, is a foreign language. And it takes that extra effort to kind of translate what you're saying, formulate a response, and translate it back to you. So a few extra seconds for time to process language can be enormously helpful, even though it feels kind of awkward to give those few extra seconds. Use literal language. A lot of autistic people do not do well with metaphor. So, tell people what you need. Be clear. If someone's too close to you, don't take a couple steps back and hope they figure it out. They're not going to. Say kindly, I'm going to take 2 steps back. Please stay where you are. You're too close. And that person will generally very much appreciate that. Also, things like for language processing. If someone is running and you don't want them to, tell them what you want them to do. Because if you say don't run, they may only process run. But if you say walk, that gives them a chance to process what you're trying to tell them. And then consider the environment. Are they being stressed by sensory inputs? Is it noisy? Are they uncertain where they're going? Are they hungry? All of those environmental factors can influence how you're interacting with that person. And then finally, probably the best one, if you're unsure what to do, ask. Ask that person if they're able to communicate it to you, or ask their supporter. Because there's going to be, if they're not able to communicate with you, there's generally going to be someone there with them. Some of the things not to do. Don't expect eye contact. Some autistic people are fine with making eye contact. For other autistic people, it's too much. It's overwhelming. They're getting too much information while they're trying to process language. So the more it looks like someone isn't paying attention to you, the more they're actually getting that information. So it's counterintuitive. Do not touch without permission or notice, because sometimes you do have to touch people. So let people know if that's coming. They may be fine with it. They may be a sensory seeker like my younger son, or they may not like any touch at all. It can feel like a burning sensation. Even a simple, oh, let's move along here, and you touch their arm or something. Just don't do it unless you know that person and know it's okay. And then finally, avoid sudden changes. When you're autistic, the world does not make a whole lot of sense a lot of times. You're not getting information that other people are getting from whether it's verbal or nonverbal cues. So being given a sense of what's going to happen and being able to figure that out and make changes helps enormously. Otherwise, sometimes you run into a meltdown. And one quick story, because I don't want to take too much time, but when my older son was in 2nd grade, his teacher told me she'd never had an autistic student before, which was nonsense. She taught for years. And I said, you just didn't know it, but you did. But I give her credit because she figured it out. Because, every 6 weeks or so, they have to change the desks and who's going to be what helper and stuff that just, I hated when they did that because it really upset my son. So she would figure out Friday afternoon, she'd pull him aside, tell him the changes that were coming on Monday, listen to his explanation of why that was a terrible idea. And then on Monday, when she made the change, he processed it. He was able to do it. So that's just one example. So that was our What is Autism? And I'll go quickly through what is the Autism Society of Oregon. We are a nonprofit organization that serves the entire state of Oregon. We also make our programs open to people in Southwest Washington because they're so close it feels really bad to say no. We are the state affiliate of the Autism Society of America, but we are a pretty autonomous organization. We have our own board of directors that's here in Oregon, makes all of our decisions. We raise all of our own money here, and it stays here. I have to say, we're a 501c3, so all donations are tax deductible. And we also address needs throughout the lifespan, so from very little to very old, and across the autism spectrum, because people are so different. Our mission is that we create connections, empowering everyone in the autism community with the resources needed to live fully. So we help people find the resources. In some cases, we help generate those resources, but we don't do direct services. We're not therapists ourselves, but we help people find therapists, and we help people access them through insurance, for example. In terms of supports, we host probably more than a dozen support and activity groups at this point. Some are online, some meet in person throughout the state. There's groups for autistic kids, for autistic teens, for autistic adults, and for parents. In the past, we've also done groups for grandparents and siblings, and we're hoping to restart those now that COVID seems to be waning. On our website, we have a link to support groups by region and also what's online, and we list our groups as well as everything we know about to try and make it one-stop shopping. We also have an online resource guide that covers everything from therapists to summer camps to where it's a good place to get a haircut. Most of it is statewide, but most things are here in the Portland metro area because that's where most of the providers are. But we do try and make it statewide. For community education, we do workshops and webinars on various topics, including a monthly webinar we do on autism resources in Oregon. We do presentations like this, and we're happy to go anywhere as long as I can find it. And we don't charge for our presentations. We don't charge for any of our services. We also do resource tables and community inclusion events, like we just had our autism walk Sunday, at Oaks Park. We do that every year. We're going to have another one in Salem coming up May 21st. And then we do things like swim events, bowling events, sensory-friendly Santa, Easter egg hunts, just to give people a chance to interact with their community and build some really good family memories. And for more information about the things we do, we have our online calendar of events. And once again, we post our events and then everything we know about that would be of interest to the autistic and the autism community throughout the state. So once again, try and make one-stop shopping. We also have a Facebook page, and we have an e-newsletter that we put out. Two of our most popular programs I always like to give a shout out to. One is Take a Break on ASO, which is an evening out for parents of autistic kids. It's dinner and a movie, and we pay for a babysitter. Yeah, it's our most popular program. And then there's Take a Breather, which is a newer program. It's a similar idea, but it's for autistic individuals themselves. It's for ages 16 and older, and they can get gift cards for up to $100 for whatever they would like to do that would give them a break. Lots of requests for art supplies, for fidgets, to go on trips to the coast. We had one guy who wanted to go on an Amtrak ride, so we got him an Amtrak gift card. So whatever we can do to help them avoid autistic burnout. These are available statewide. There's no wait list, and people are able to participate once a year. So just contact us, and we're happy to facilitate that. And finally, April is Autism Acceptance Month, and our definition of autism acceptance is to be actively offering autistic individuals the supports they need to be fully included as valuable and valued members of our families, our schools, our neighborhoods, and our community at large. And we really appreciate the work that the Port has been doing to be accepting and to help people access travel through the Portland Airport. And as I mentioned, we have our next walk coming up Sunday, May 21st at the Riverfront Park in Salem, if anyone hails from down that way. And then finally, this is our contact information. Like I said, I'm Tobi Rates. I'm Executive Director. There's our website, our email, which comes directly to me, as well as our phone number. So please contact us with any way that we can help or any questions that you have. And do we still have time for questions?
We do.
Okay.
If anyone has questions, we'll repeat them so that the folks at home can hear, but feel free to raise your hand and ask away if anyone has anything burning they'd like to ask Tobi. Matthias.
Tobi, if we here at the airport, the concessionaires and so on, is there any fundraising events that we can engage with?
The question was, if there are any fundraising events that the concessionaires at the airport can engage with us? And yes, we'd love to talk about that. Absolutely. Ranging from, set aside day, this much percentage is donated, or any way that we can work with you for fundraising. We'd be happy to do that. We'd be delighted to. So yeah, I'll come talk with you after the event.
Great question.
Yeah, thank you for asking it. Yeah. Any other questions? Or you're also welcome to come up and ask me, afterwards if it's a personal question too. All right, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, as Tobi had mentioned, we've got a really long-standing relationship with the Autism Society of Oregon, and the airport has been doing a lot of focused accessibility work for a number of years now. Our focused accessibility work actually started back in 2018. We have an accessibility committee that I chair that we work with a lot of different stakeholders from across the airport community. Jill McPherson on our operations team, for example, in the back of the room, and a number of other folks from across the organization in planning and development, and our PDX Next delivery team that really try to identify ways to make the airport more accessible and inclusive in the future with our construction efforts, but also looking at the here and now. What can we do right now to make the infrastructure better, to make the services better? And we do a lot of really focused work with our accessibility team, which again is made up of community organizations that focus around a whole host of disabilities and needs, because ultimately we want the airport experience to be better for all airport users, both traveling public, employees, and everything in between. So We have a really great video that Brian Cho, our videographer, the port's videographer, helped put together for us. And I thought I'd show that. It's just a couple of minutes. And then I have a few other things to share before we jump into the awards part of the event.
As an airport community, we're putting a lot of thought and intention into the work that we're doing around accessibility. We came together and thought about how we wanted to try to make the airport as accessible as we could and to create as much engagement as possible with all of our community partners, including them as we're making decisions both for the future as well as for where we're at right now, both from a services and an infrastructure perspective. We're trying to think about who's at the table, who's not at the table, who's burdened by the decision, who's benefiting from the decision, and ultimately try to make sure that we're doing our best to define the problem and make sure that all the stakeholders that the decision ultimately impacts or influences are at the table. And that's at the root of the accessibility program.
How the port thinks about accessibility is we look at what the customer needs are. So that's in the form of customer feedback, what are trends, and we evaluate how we can incorporate those items into our facility.
The questions are constantly being asked. Should we do this better? What would work better for you? And they want to be sure they're getting it right.
Understanding and acknowledging that everybody's journey is different. So whatever that journey looks like, make that journey the best possible journey it can be for that individual. There's so many different areas that have been adjusted and modified in a way that makes the guest experience better for all airport users.
The airport has been making some important changes to make the airport friendlier. For example, there's going to be a caregiving bathroom. A person of a different gender can go in and help someone. Not everybody thinks about what it takes to fly when you're in a wheelchair or a walker or you have some kind of disability. The other thing that's exciting is some of the signage is changing to make it more visible to people with lower sight.
As a parent of a disabled child, we're doing everything we can to avoid a meltdown. It's not fun for my daughter. It's not fun for the people who experience it. It's definitely not fun for the parents. And so to have a place that if we need to take a little bit of a break and kind of calm down is really important to us and helps us to access travel and seriously decreases the stress level we experience.
To know that I can get somewhere on my own or have access to resources that other people readily have, it's the greatest feeling of independence you can possibly have.
It's important to have community feedback. It's important to listen to your users. That is, I think, the foundation of what makes us a top airport.
I think it's a game changer for the whole city because it's a model that can be used for other businesses, for other organizations. And of course, we would love to see other airports get on board. But the great thing is we know PDX has been and is still working to be a pioneer.
We'll give Brian a round of applause. And again, before we dive in to the real heart of the event today, I wanted to call out a couple things. First of all, I know that Tobi indicated our sensory room, the Autism Society, was a huge partner in terms of making that a reality. It's located near gate D10. We opened that in January of 22, and it features activity panels for children, tactile art, comfortable seating, soothing bubble features. The lighting can be adjusted in the room. And in addition to having the sensory room, we also have sensory kits that are available at both of the TSA checkpoints that include noise-canceling headphones, a sunflower lanyard, fidget tools, an emotional thermometer, and a host of other items that really ultimately help make the experience better for autistic people and people traveling with autistic family members. So those sensory kits are also available at the Travel Oregon Welcome Center down in baggage claim, and they're available for all passengers. So that's another resource that we have available. The Sunflower Lanyard program we launched in approximately the same time frame. We launched it in February of 22. Those lanyards are available at all airline ticket counters and the Travel Oregon Welcome Center. We also have a relationship with the Autism Society of Oregon, and they're willing to send those to people with enough lead time to help them with advance of their travel. And folks with a hidden disability or Sunflower Lanyard, the asks of employees are relatively simple. Ask if you can help, be kind, listen closely, have patience, don't judge and show respect. And respect is one of our core values anyways. It's really something that as all airport employees, we try to embody all of those core values anyways. So it's just giving those folks a little extra space and giving them a little extra care. We also have some really great resources available on our public website. So for employees, we have some really interesting training tools, sensory inclusion training, which I'll have another slide here in just a second, some training around the Sunflower Lanyard program, and then I also provide in-person training. So any of you business owners, if you're bringing on new employees, we do customer service training that includes these elements as well. And then for the traveling public and airport employees, it's good to know that we have accessibility resources available on our public website as well. The TSA Cares, we have a TSA person in the room here, but the TSA Cares program is a federal program and it's a nationwide program, but we have a link to it on our accessibility website. The TSA has a lot of tools and resources to support the needs of different people that are coming through the airport. We have a PDX resource guide, which is really a preparation guide. You can download a copy of that. We have hard copies available as well. Mapping and orientation. So you can print copies of the map in advance. So if you want to walk through how to get from point A to point B in advance of travel, that's a good option. We also have a relationship with a company called Good Maps. We've got a pilot on Concourse E, and that really does point-to-point navigation inside spaces. I'm excited that in a couple months, that technology is going to be revolutionized, and it's actually going to have some artificial intelligence built into it. So you're going to be able to hold up your camera on your phone and actually see a blue dot point-to-point navigation on your phone here in the not-so-distant future, which will help not just people who aren't sighted, but all airport users that ultimately need a little additional help getting from point A to point B. Orientation, mobility resources, so we link to how to get a wheelchair. If you need a wheelchair in the garage, if you need a wheelchair if you're coming in from a rental car company, how do we get a hold of wheelchairs? Because wheelchairs are provided by the airlines. So we provide some of that connective tissue there to support that. And visual paging. Visual paging is a visual representation of what gets called over the loudspeaker. And all airport pages that are made airport-wide have a visual element. And we have a screen that's built into our flight information displays inside the terminal. So we display the visual paging information on our public website as well. So some of these tools, and there's others. This is just kind of a snapshot, but really just wanted to call all of that out. We do have a little promotion going on right now for airport employees. So the sensory inclusive training that we provide through our website, anybody who takes that training, if you're an employee, you're entered in to win a $100 Visa gift card. So Julia and I, we've offered that in the past. It's something that's very popular. We want to get as many airport employees certified as we can. We have a really great relationship with Culture City. And Culture City is a nonprofit organization that really supports sensory needs, not just those that are for autistic people, but for all people with sensory needs. And, Tobi, I think you said it best, right? That not every, person with a sensory need is autistic, but every autistic person has some form of sensory need. So it's always important to call that out. And Autism Acceptance Month is one of many month-long celebrations that we as a community are celebrating. So we're really pleased that Tobi was able to come out and celebrate with us today and provide some really great tools. So it's now the point that we've all been waiting for. If I could have my PDX people, working committee members join me. We've kind of reoriented the room a little bit. So instead of having everyone get blinded by the projector, we're going to kind of meet over here on the corner. We have a couple absentee folks that aren't here today. But if when you hear your name, come on up. We've got a great award for you. We've got a swag bag that has some really, niche stuff in it, as well as a gift card. But really, a very warm appreciation for all of you that are in this. Yeah, exactly. Got some cool socks and some cool stuff in there. So anyways, without any further ado, I'm going to turn things over to my friend Amanda with 10 to 11 Empire.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be back again reading some awards this year. My name's Amanda. I use she, her pronouns. First, we have Hillary Penny from Delta Airlines. This compliment came from a PDX volunteer. A family approached the information booth and explained that they had arrived in Portland, Oregon, rather than their intended destination of Portland, Maine. They were frazzled, confused, and disillusioned. I walked the family upstairs to talk to a Delta agent to see if there was anything that could be done. While standing in line, I engaged more with the family, and their story began to take shape. They had arrived in Portland via Phoenix, where they had arrived from the Congo. Delta agent Hillary greeted us at the ticket counter, and after some research, she determined that the tickets had been purchased through a travel agency. Unfortunately, she was unable to reach them to try to fix the mix-up. Hillary went to work to try to get the get discounted tickets for the family who shared they had very limited funds after their travels. Debbie Situk, the Delta station manager, gave Hillary the go-ahead to escalate the requested for rebooking. After almost 2 hours of helping the family, Hillary was able to book the family to fly out that night to Portland, Maine. Throughout the entire encounter, Hillary was friendly, compassionate, curious, and tenacious. She went the extra mile to help them reach their destination where family was waiting for them. Thank you for being an incredible PDX ambassador, Hillary. It was a pleasure to watch you work your magic. Next, we have Jennifer Hansen with Portland Coffee Roasting. This nomination came from a PDX employee at Timberline Lodge. She showed up the day after the initial snowstorm and ran the place single-handed. After a sleepless night in our store's stockroom, a hot tea and yogurt was very much appreciated by our employees. Jennifer was upbeat and friendly on a very trying day. I thanked her in person the following day, and she said she primarily came in so her fellow airport employees could get coffee. She even offered to drop off drinks to our store. Jennifer went above and beyond. And then Lauren Wilson with Tender Loving Empire. This compliment came from Lauren's supervisor. Lauren was the opener for Tender Loving Empire during the record snow day. She was cautious coming into work, but made sure to arrive early so that individuals stuck at the airport had access to food and drinks. Many of the travelers had been stranded or waiting since the day before. By arriving early, she set the store up for success and made sure arriving customers had access to treats and drinks.
Hello, I am Therese Chapdelaine from Dollar Car Rental, and it's a pleasure to get to extend some of the awards today. Neil Teller was with Dollar Car Rental, and this is a compliment from one of our customers. Neil at Dollar Car Rental did an exceptional job of helping to get me where I needed to go. I was caught up in the holiday nightmare of air travel, and I was extremely frustrated, upset, and exhausted. Neil helped calm me down and got my arrangements in order so that I could get to where I needed to be with minimal hassle. By this point, my travel plans were ruined, and I was at the end of my patience after calling airlines, rentals, and other reservations. Neil was literally the only person I spoke to that day who made me feel like a valued customer who was being heard. I wish there were more customer service reps out there like Neil. He probably doesn't even remember helping me, but his compassion and professionalism made my holiday brighter, and I wish I could thank him for that. So thank you. This is Jim Dooley with the PDX Volunteer Information Program.
Jill's going to recognize or take the award on Jim's behalf. Jim,
Okay.
please join us.
You're Jim. Okay, Jim. This compliment came from a thankful passenger. I would like to say that Jim is amazing. We met him in customs where we needed some help figuring out what to do. We were switching airlines, so we were a little confused. Jim took the shuttle bus with us and accompanied us all the way to our airline counter. He was incredibly helpful and was super pleasant the whole time. Isn't that nice? Nice.
Yep, that's all you.
Okay, that's you.
We'll swap it up.
We'll spot.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, thank you for coming out today. It's my pleasure to give this award to Taylor Jensen. He's one of my employees, currently on his way to be promoted to supervisor too. That's just how wonderful he is. Slight plug. Anyways, this compliment came in from a thankful passenger. Taylor was wonderful. He came in to our rescue when we discovered we had a dead car battery. We called for assistance, and we were pleasantly surprised when Taylor showed up moments later. Taylor was phenomenal. He was so can-do and quickly got our car operational again, much to our relief after a long day of travel. We loved his cheerful attitude, which helped lift our spirits and shifted us from feeling somewhat panicky about the situation. He's truly a parking lot angel. Thank you so much for the service, and please give gold stars to Taylor. Jennifer.
And he's got great ties, by the way. Yeah, let's shake your hand first. All right, here we go, man. Congratulations. All right.
Okay. Tawan Burnkoff. This compliment came from Tawan's supervisor. Officer Tawan Burnkoff's role as a TSO behavior recognition specialist takes her all around PDX and allows her to interact with a diverse group of people. I'm sharing one recent example of Tawan going above and beyond to help our passengers here at PDX. A visitor at PDX who was using a wheelchair found himself stranded at PDX. After experiencing various hardships and obstacles on his journey to Portland, he found himself stuck at PDX a few days before his flight without his boarding pass and identification documents. He was struggling with what to do next when he encountered Tawan. Though the traveler had some difficulty communicating, Tawan listened with patience and respect and took action. Once the gentleman was able to obtain another boarding pass, Tawan helped guide him through the rest of the process to meet his flight. She walked him to the checkpoint and helped him through the screening process. Once he was approved through security, she walked him to his gate and brought him a meal. Thanks to Tawan, the man had a comfortable wait at his gate and was able to make his flight the following day. This is just one of many times she has made an extraordinary effort for a passenger. She deserves to be recognized for her sharp eye for those in need and her compassionate actions.
Lusana or Lucy, this compliment comes from a thankful passenger. I just wanted to tell you how grateful I am for your wheelchair attendant, Lucy. My flight was diverted to Portland because of weather. It was very late and I was beyond exhausted. Without Lucy helping me, I don't know what I would have done. She not only stayed with me during my entire journey from gate to luggage claim to taxi pickup, but she was also incredibly encouraging and emotionally supportive. We ended up waiting for the reserve car service for nearly 45 minutes. Lucy never left my side, even though it was freezing cold. She engaged me in conversation to keep me from thinking about how miserable I was feeling and was so cheerful and gracious. I couldn't believe her kindness and patience. Thank you so much for hiring such an incredible person. If only the whole world were full of people like Lucy. Wendy. Oh yeah, this is an amazing story. Dustin Thompson, come on up. This compliment came from a fellow PDX employee. A passenger fell right at the entrance of DEQ. Dustin was in the middle of the line when he heard someone scream. He ran to the scene to find a passenger having a seizure. Dustin immediately called for EMT assistance. Dustin was able to get the passenger on his side and in a safe position until the medical personnel arrived. Dustin's quick actions helped the passenger receive timely medical attention and prevent further injury. I would like to recognize Dustin Thompson for his heroic action. Truly amazing to come into action like that, man.
All right, and we couldn't have every Hudson employee in the room today, so if I could have my Hudson friends, so Nick, James, if you'd like to, all the Hudson folks in the room, come on up, Yeah, exactly. Come on up, all the Hudson family. And we have a little collage here that we're going to display on our flight information displays too. That pink shirt looks incredible on you too, Nick. It really does. Yeah. And as we all know, we had some unprecedented, I know we haven't used the word unprecedented in a while, we had some unprecedented snowfall in the month of February. And the entire airport community obviously was impacted by that. But this really goes to show the resolve of the Hudson team, so I'm going to go ahead and read the nomination. During the recent record-breaking snowstorm, our airport was brought to its knees. Business across the region were forced to stay, close the roadways. Roadways were completely clogged, turning a 15-minute commute into 5 hours. Even PDX, the majority of the businesses were closed or had very limited hours. There were hundreds of stranded passengers with nowhere to go. They were hungry, cold, and tired. But through all this, there was a beacon of blue light in the shape of an H. Hudson Group managed to keep at least 2 of their stores open day and night with food, blankets, and hoodies for those in need. This was accomplished with help from brave Uber drivers and a dedicated general manager who spent those 2 days giving people rides in his truck. Hudson employees never say no to a traveler in need. Their passion and commitment is unparalleled, and they truly are a passenger's best friend. So to all of the folks joining us remotely and James and his team, let's give the Hudson team a big round of applause. Obviously, we couldn't have them all out here, so we're going to be doing a special catered event for them next week as well. and try to engage with as many of their folks. We'll bring some stuff out to all the units for folks that can't necessarily make it down to the unit. But James and to the rest of the Hudson team, our hearts go out to you. We know that it was a really hard time, and we really appreciate everyone, rallying and making it work. And I'm glad you didn't get stuck in the snow getting your employees to and from work as well. Yeah, I'm sure you did. So with that said, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. That's the end of our program today. But again, a final warm round of applause for all of our quarterly award winners in the room. If I could have some of our quarterly award winners join us up front, we'll do a final photo and recognize those folks one last time. But again, thank you all so much for coming. We really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming.
Get some more tacos.
And get some more tacos on the way out. Yeah. All right.